Do please be seated. Okay, we've done the visible. Is there anything else that we need to put on this board? Not according to a handful of philosophers that met about 100 years ago in the then equivalent of Starbucks. They came together and they developed an idea that had been around for a while and got quite excited about it, that the only thing that really matters or means anything is matter, or derivatives of matter. The only thing that matters or makes any kind of sense worth talking about are those things that you can prod and poke and examine and boil and look at and see. This was all of it, all of existence that meant anything for them. And they felt quite good about that. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when they went home. Because there's one thing they forgot about, at least one. Can you imagine, as they went home to their wives after that coffee drinking session? Hello, love. Nice day at the office? Yeah, great. We came up with this fantastic idea. The only thing that matters is matter. Really? Yeah. And do you know what? You and me, honey, our relationship, entirely physical. Oh, yes. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Nothing but a bunch of molecules banging together. Oh, yes. To which a restrained and polite answer is, dearest, I think you and your friends have had one too many coffees. And yet this idea has actually percolated and shaped the minds of millions, and particularly us in our Western culture. They missed out this. They missed out love, first of all. We sing about it. Britney sings about it. The Beatles sing about it. Barry Manilow sings about it. Love is real. And at Christmas time, we have a heightened awareness of that. We gather in families. We give presents to one another, those that we love. And at the same time, if you don't find that connection, if you can feel especially isolated, because one thing we know for sure, even as much as we know that, is that the I, me, as I talk to you right now, hello, there you are, you, existing, conscious, aware, processing things, working things out, in one sense, on your own. And if we find ourselves in that situation, particularly at Christmas, it can be particularly painful. One psychologist wrote that love is as critical for your mind and body as oxygen. It's not negotiable. The more connected you are, the healthier you will be both physically and emotionally. The less connected you are, the more you are at risk. You see, this is the means by which we, us, the I's, connect together. And when it works, happy. When it goes wrong, sad. And they're real, aren't they? Happiness, sadness, joy. These are real things that we mustn't miss out if we're trying to draw everything together. Elvis sings the cry of every human heart. Love me tender, love me true, all my dreams fulfill. For my darling, I love you, and I always will. I plan to have my wife right there and say that to her, but unfortunately she's looking after our kids at the moment, so I was trying not to catch the eye of anybody in particular at that moment. For my darling, I love you, and I always will. Love is eternal. Shakespeare said, it is an ever-fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. The Bible says love never fails. It is a fixed absolute in the universe, as sure as light. It shapes the way things are. Just as we have fixed things over here, we have fixed things over here. And you miss masses if you do not factor this in. Love. We mustn't miss it out. Any description of the universe that does so is sadly lacking. What else can we put on this board? If you read the newspapers, as you read it, your emotions will go up and down, your heart will go up and down, and something else is going up and down as you read newspapers. In the Times today, Or in this week, we see even teenagers convicted of killing other people. And when we hear that, we recognize something, don't we? That is as true as anything else we know to be true. That some things are just plain wrong. And yet in the same newspaper, just happens to be, out pops a kind of an appeal for charity. This one happens to be the Salvation Army. At the same time as those things are going on, there are others going on that are going out of their way to look after those in need, and particularly this time of year. And as we see that, something in us recognizes that some things are just right. It's often easy to do that at a distance, but we need to know that actually these things can hit closer to home. One guy, Ravi Zacharias, says this. He says, if you want to ask the question about the evil around you, you would do well to ask first of the evil within. Evil is more than an exterior reality that engenders universal suffering. It is an internal reality from which we run. I remember literally almost to the minute that I came to an awareness of this in my own life. I was used to looking at, reading the newspapers, looking at things out there and going, that's right, that's wrong, that's right, that's wrong. And suddenly I became aware that actually there were some things that I had done wrong. There were crosses over my life. Do you have any of these things over your life? They're not a mirage. They point to something that's real. The moral absolutes. Now, there is a moral right and wrong, and we can do things that are right and do things that are wrong because we have been given genuine responsibility. Often we talk about rights, but really it all starts with responsibilities. The way we treat one another, the way we treat the world around us. We're responsible for these things. And if you have children, everything in you wants them to grow up with a sense of responsibility. Are you tricking them or fooling them? Or do you want to see something of reality built into them? And when they turn around and say, why should I be responsible? Why am I responsible? To whom am I responsible? What do you say to them? What's the answer? Perhaps we could draw responsibility like this. Little crown. We're given authority, we're given responsibility, we're given gifts and abilities and placed in a context with people around us in a world now as we're aware of all the things around the world. You have responsibility. Where does it come from? Or is it just a mirage? The truth of the Christmas story is that there's a reality behind all these things. That the person of Jesus steps into history. It's supposed to be a crib or a manger or something. It's a straw. The person steps into history. The one who is love steps into a world where there's hate. The one who is happy and full of joy steps into a world where there's sadness. The one who has no crosses over his life, who has never, ever, ever done anything wrong, and it's in his nature to be totally good, steps into a world where there is evil and where people do make bad choices. The one from whom all responsibility comes, who gives all responsibility, steps into a world where there is rebellion and mutiny. The Christmas story is that the invisible God behind all of this becomes visible in the person of Jesus. Why? Why? What would you rub out? I'm going to leave you with that question as we're going to have a presentation song, I believe now. So please do stay seated. The band are going to play to us. And then I think we're going to sing Silent Night, but do, I think, also feel free to stay seated for that. Join in if you want with Silent Night, but do enjoy it.